There we go. How's that? Okay, go ahead. Okay, talking words.
Talking. All right.
Ready to roll. Great.
Excellent.
Okay, so we're joined here by Ken Huey, who is a freelance Portland-based illustrator who has done comics, magazine illustration, and agency storyboard work, among other things, throughout his career. And his work has been featured in the Willamette Week and the Portland Mercury. And he trained in Dallas under the illustrator Don Ivan Punchatz, who's an illustrator who's well known in I'm curious what experiences you had studying under Punchatz, like what kind of a mentor he was to you when you started out.
Well, Don Punchatz is an interesting case. The classic way for artists to learn their trade was in the atelier or studio system, where a master artist would have a bunch of assistants who'd help him out with the jobs. Assistants, interns, gophers, floor sweepers, etc. And people would gain experience and work their way up. But that's something that's very rare to find anymore. And he was at pains to try to keep that kind of thing alive for modern illustrators, young illustrators. And I was very fortunate to get it in under the wire before he was forced to finally close that down due to economic circumstances. So I was lucky enough, without any particular academic education or any grounding outside of just being self-taught and loving to draw. He taught me how to paint, how to compose an image, to solve a communication problem, and also those tricky things like how to go into an art director's office and show your portfolio and sell them on the idea that you could actually do something successfully for them, which isn't something that you find all that often. I think even in an art school, you're likely not to get the business training, the marketing training that turns out to be so important when you're actually trying to make a living off of the things that you love to do.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like a good practical side to learn. And so I'm curious, when did you first start considering illustration as a career and it going from something you enjoyed to do to something you wanted to pursue in your life?
Well, it's funny. I would have child encyclopedias when I was a kid, and I'd read about advertising, and I'd figure, well, I like to draw, so I guess I'll be in advertising when I grow up. Which is funny because especially when I got to be a teenager and got a certain amount of political enlightenment, got a little woke, as you might say, the idea of going to work for the capitalist mind control system seemed like the last thing I'd ever want to do. But as it turns out, with the system that we live with today, if you want to make a living, well, I kind of compare it to being an artist during the Renaissance. You're going to have to paint Jesus whether you like to or not. And so, I paint for draw for advertising mostly. As I say, most of what I do these days is storyboarding. So it's the kind of stuff that's meant to communicate ideas within the business, or like from the business, the ad agency, to the client, so that they can convince them, the agency can convince the client to give them the money to do the filmed commercial or, whatever the end product may be.
Right, and so your role in that is not really the final product. It's more like a sort of a piece in the interplay.
I'm a visualizer as far as that goes. I help people get their ideas into a format where it's easy to communicate to somebody else. That's all an illustrator, or really, I guess, any artist is basically doing. And I do a fair amount of other work too. Like I say, I've been published in the local weeklies, just as an example of stuff that's intended for the general public. But my specialty is that kind of business-to-business communication. And for all of them within a system that I don't entirely approve of, I have to say the work's very congenial. The folks are really nice. They're easy to work with for the most part.
Doesn't seem like a bad way to be involved in that.
No, they seduce you with their wiles, that's for sure.
Sure, they have to. Yeah. So, what side of your art is more for yourself, like a personal expression that you do more for for fun?
Well, I do a lot of stuff in my sketchbook, and that tends to be very loose. I'm the kind of artist who started out being very, very tight and fussy, and I've had to learn to loosen up. There's another kind of artist that starts out very loose, and they have to learn to be more precise about things.
Yeah.
My joy and my adventure in my work has been learning that I don't need to fuss over every little detail to make something look good. That's actually one of the advantages of doing the kind of storyboard work I do, because there's no time for fiddling around with making everything just perfect under those circumstances. You just draw something as quickly as possible that gets the idea across. And I found that to be a very good discipline for the kind of work I really enjoy doing.
Yeah. And what would you say is the kind of work you really enjoy doing, just to put it?
I was raised on comic books.
Uh-huh.
I still get a kick out of drawing superheroes or fantasy creatures, monsters, zombies.
Yeah.
Pretty girls. I love drawing pretty girls. Handsome men. Never been much for landscapes, I'm sorry to say, but I try to keep my options open.
Yeah. Well, I was curious also, when we talked a little bit earlier, you had talked about how you've given a lot of thought of what it means to be an artist, and kind of just, I'm curious if you could ruminate on that a little bit in this time when a lot of lines are getting blurred with the digital media and such.
Well, digital media have introduced an interesting kind of imprecision into all that, because now, more than ever, it seems like people can put themselves across as being illustrators or graphic designers and really not be able to draw hardly at all. Not that I have anything against that. As a matter of fact, a lot of what I've done over the years hasn't involved drawing so much as tracing. I mean, that's not exactly the dirty little secret of the art world, but it is something that helps us get things done, up to snuff and on deadline, which is one of the most important things. When I was talking about the difference between art and illustration, though, kind of getting into the weeds, I suppose, but I remember seeing a cover of Newsweek or Time years back where they were asking about Andrew Wyeth. Wyeth, artist or illustrator? And I took a little bit of offense at that, being a professional illustrator myself, but also I thought there was kind of a category error there, and that the idea that an artist and an illustrator are fundamentally two different kinds of work, doing different kinds of work, I think is really mistaken, because if you look at the greatest artists, say of the Renaissance period, the ones who were painting Jesus or Madonnas or whatever, they were illustrating scenes. They were trying to communicate a scene from history or the present day, or giving you a portrait of a rich and powerful person. And an illustrator today has to pay attention to the same sort of questions of composition and aesthetics and anatomy and so on that the very finest of fine artists ever would have had to deal with. I guess the main difference these days is because so much of the fine arts has been taken over with what sells well in the galleries these days, which has passed on, I guess, from abstract expressionism to conceptual art, and now, I don't know, whatever the postmodern mode would be. Personally, I guess I have to say I'm pretty traditional about all that. I like drawing figures. I like making things that look relatively realistic. And a lot of the fashionable art I see these days really rather leaves me cold. It seems like a matter of trickery, mind games, just trying to come up with some gimmick that will surprise and please. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not the kind of thing that I'm interested in pursuing myself.
Right. All right. We have time for one more question, I think. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about why you think, you said this earlier as well, you think that adults rarely pursue art or like drawing as compared to children, who it's kind of a universal interest among a lot of kids, and I was wondering why you think so many adults kind of drop that from when they were kids.
I think I can be succinct about that. When you get to a certain age, the age of reason or whatever, let's say about 6 or 7 or 8, you start to notice that there are people out there who draw really, really good. And you start to get a little intimidated by that. And a lot of kids just stop because they don't feel like they're up to snuff. They don't think that what they're doing is serious enough to warrant continuing investing their time into. I just happen to have been dumb or stubborn enough or whatever that I never gave up and let the experts take over. And to a sense, I guess, that turned me into an expert myself after a while.
I like that answer.
Who knew?
I mean, that's relatable, and I think that it's a good story. I'm glad that you've continued and you can give us your art, you know?
Well,
so
I
thank
try.
you for that. Thanks. And thanks for coming on here.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, okay.
So, do I get a lollipop?
The reward is eternal glory.
Oh, my pleasure.
So you live here now?
Yes, I do.
Oh, I'd love to see you email me some of your
Oh
work.
yeah, I will. Plug your work a little bit.
On this side, on the right. And then, how about you guys, Sean and Wilson, you guys set up the shot? Sorry, just have to make sure it's green, yeah. Oh, very cool. So it's a 10-minute interview. At 1 minute, I give the 1 minute sign.
Okay.
And then he knows, he's practiced. He knows how to
How do you? Should this be on the left side?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to lean down or anything.
Okay. Check, check, words and such. Okay. All right.
Does that work? Okay.
Everybody's checked, everybody's heard. Can you speak, Will?
Check, check, words.
And then how's this? Is this working? Okay.
Good to go.
All right. All right, today we have Susan Smith here today. She is the assistant professor of music at Lewis and Clark College. She has had an extensive performing career as a soloist. She's played with the Oregon Symphony, the Dartmouth Symphony, the Palomar Symphony, and personally to me the most interesting is played with the Kronos Quartet and the Juilliard Quartet. Currently she is the head of the piano department and is my Theory 3 teacher. So our first question, was there a strong musical presence in your childhood?
There was. My parents both loved music. My father played Mahler 4 every single Sunday in the morning, so I remember waking up to that all the time. And they got a piano when I was 4 and gave me lessons shortly after that. So.
Did you find yourself getting kind of sick of that Mahler after every Sunday?
No. It was sort of like it's Sunday.
It's
Because Sunday
Mahler.
also meant sweet rolls.
Oh,
and,
okay, so it was a nice
Yeah.
association.
Yes.
Makes sense. Beyond just your dad, were there any other factors that really made you decide that you wanted to do music early on?
I think I always wanted to play music because I loved it, and my parents both supported that, so they found teachers that who I really liked,
That's
and
great.
played a lot of music in the house, so folk songs and Burl Ives. I don't know
love
if
Burl
you remember
Ives,
Burl
yeah.
Ives. Yeah. So I had a little record player with lots of music that I listened to that was
Okay.
folksy and songs. But what I do remember is my dad taking me to hear Van Cliburn, any of the great pianists who would come through Portland, and they did quite often actually. There was a really active piano scene here. I got to go, so I got to hear Van Cliburn and Rubinstein and
Okay, interesting.
people who were. really
Did you
great.
have any other instruments that you thought you might want to play beyond just the piano?
I played the cello. So I played the cello from the age of 9 through most of high school, actually.
Okay, haven't picked it up since very much.
I play it, but by myself.
Right.
I have a
what
dream
you
of
mean.
someday maybe being in a string quartet,
Oh,
but I do play.
Okay, someday maybe. See, did you have any other considerations for your career besides music before you really decided?
I did. I loved medicine and the
Medicine.
idea of medicine. My parents were both doctors, and
Oh, okay.
they loved what they did, and I liked science, and so that was the other consideration for a career. And actually, that's what I thought I was going to do when I went to college.
Before you realized, you wanted to follow dreams
Mm-hmm.
instead of responsible things.
Well, it was what I felt. It was the difference between the two were something that I was really interested in, and something that I felt like was me and that I could never give up.
Right, okay.
And, yeah.
Yeah, I understand how that feels. So you've mentioned before in class how you have perfect pitch. I was wondering, were you born with that ability or did you develop it as you got older?
You know, I don't know. My understanding of perfect pitch is that you're born with, I guess, some innate ability to develop it given the right circumstances.
Okay.
And so I think having a fixed pitch instrument, the piano, around when I was little, when I was 4, really helped. And then for some reason I developed, I thought each key had a personality, each note. So C was the mother note, F was the bad guy, and so on. And so there was sort of this active, I don't know, imaginary life that went on with the piano where I'd play and they'd say things to each other. And so I think that actually helped with the development because each note had a character.
Have you ever, like, based on the personalities of these keys, have you ever been playing a piece and felt like it wasn't in the right key and transpose it to a key that might fit the personality of the
I've
song more?
tried it just to see how it feels, and different keys feel very different. I still don't love F. Yeah.
Just staying away from that.
And my guess is that it was because it was a half step away from E, and that had a specific kind of tension that I picked up. But
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
that's my guess.
Let's see. As a pianist and an accomplished one, what are 5 pieces that you think every pianist should learn?
That's a really good question. Something by Bach, for sure. And if I had to pick something, it would be one of the partitas.
Partitas.
Probably the E minor partita, which I love. I would say one of the Beethoven sonatas would be a piece that I would pick, maybe Opus 109, one of the late sonatas, because they're just so great. A Chopin ballade, probably the first ballade, because that tells such a great story. And Ravel or Debussy, and I don't know which one. That's really hard. But something by one of those two.
Yeah, these aren't sounding like beginner's pieces very much.
No, but each one of these people wrote pieces that beginners or early people to the instrument, people early to the instrument could work on.
I think Bach might have been one of the first pianists or first composers I ever played on the piano, like some of the easy minuets.
Do you remember liking Bach?
I do, yeah. I used to really like him. I think I've moved more towards the romantic style more, but yeah, I still really like him.
I did. Bach is my favorite composer, I have to
really?
say.
To the day? To
Yes.
this day?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Bach is my desert island composer.
Your desert island composer. Okay. Let's see. You mentioned in class once that your college theory class, was a little bit traumatic at times. You had like a very, very strict and tough teacher. So how that experience, did it help influence how you teach, how you conduct your class today?
It did, yeah. I keep thinking about that class all the time because one of the things my professor did was sort of assign his idea of everybody's talent to us. So we kind of had this idea of what he thought about each of us. And I decided that didn't really have a place in teaching, that you don't actually know. And you can't actually tell. And you have to really embrace a student's progress because you don't know how far they're going to go when you first start teaching them. So that's really informed my teaching, I think, is trying to make sure that each student does the very best that they can.
Makes sense. Do you think maybe that attitude that your teacher had, was that just his personality, or was that the product of his environment? So you went to Dartmouth College, and that's where this class took place.
Right.
Do you think it was the environment there that kind of created that, or was it
That's a
him?
good question. I think it was more him.
More him?
He was a protege of Nadia Boulanger.
Oh, wow.
And so he had this very strict kind of training, particularly with oral skills. And I think that he was a product of that kind of training, very strict. Everybody did every exercise in front of each other, and every exercise was critiqued, every single little piece of it, in front of everybody.
It's a very good way to scare away some like timid musicians.
And I think I think she did teach that way. She was very, very strict.
Oof. Does not sound very much fun.
But I think she did get results. I mean, I think people learned a lot.
I can imagine, yeah. She probably molded some very talented musicians.
Yes, she did.
Let's see. In a video that you took as like a promotional video for the Lewis and Clark website, you had mentioned that you think everyone should be playing music, regardless of whether it's their focus in life. How do you think that benefits someone's life?
Oh, I think it's a form of self-expression for everybody. It can be, has the potential to be. It certainly has the potential to help organize people's thinking. So I did a sort of experiment with my students when I was teaching privately, which was before they would take a test, for them to take something by Bach and practice it for half an hour before they would go and take the test. And they invariably did better on the tests when they practiced Bach first.
Really? Wow. Did you try it with other composers?
I didn't. I just tried it with Bach. I had tried it for myself with Bach and other composers, and specifically for me it was with a crossword puzzle. So I would take a crossword puzzle, work on it for 10 or 15 minutes, practice something I didn't know well, and go back to it. And Bach was the organizing force for me,
Interesting.
because I could do much better when I came back.
Bach has really had an influence in your life, it seems.
Tremendously, yeah.
Let's see. So you were also a member, correct me if I'm wrong, but also a founder of the Third Angle New Music Ensemble?
I wasn't a founder, but I've been a member for 17 years.
Wow.
So yeah, it was around for a long time before that. I think we celebrated our 25th anniversary. But yeah, I've been a member since 2000.
Wow. Okay, one last quick question. Do you have any upcoming performances with the Third Angle?
Yes, we're playing the first weekend of February.
Okay.
Music of Avo Pärt. So, yeah.
That should be really nice. Well, Susan, thank you so much for joining me here.
Thank you
Really
for having
appreciate
me.
it.
Will and you there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No, that's totally fine.
We have a nice fireplace background.
Okay.
Is this my chair?
Yeah.
Hi, Nora.
Kylie. My daughter Ella.
Now, where did the other?
Right one.
No,
Oh, next up. Yeah.
Let's see yours.
Oh, whoops.
Let's check.
I'm just check.
Yes, you're
Yeah.
good. Okay.
Oh, my stuff right
Okay. Right. Oh, the background is so cheap. Check, check, check. Hello. Testing. Hello, class. What's this class called? Writing about.
Writing about music.
Oh, okay.
So this is going to work. 10 minutes is the do at 1 minute, I'll give a 1 minute sign, and then Alex knows how to wrap it up.
Awesome.
Thank you, welcome, good.
Thank you. All right, this is Kylie Henner, bassist of Nuisance and currently Trouble Cuts, Portland resident and all-around cool guy. All right, so I'd like to start out with asking you a little bit about how Nuisance came to be. You mentioned you and Andy went to school together, so how did it really come about?
Andy and I went to high school together in Fortuna, California, Northern California. We were the two weirdos in high school, so we started playing music together. And that kind of evolved through our final year of high school, and then I went off to college, and he ended up kind of following me, so we keep playing music.
Cool.
And it went from there.
Awesome. And so you were signed to Lookout Records in, what, 1990 was it? Or
91, I think, yeah.
That was when the first album came out. So how did it feel to be signed to that label?
I think signed is probably too dramatic of a term. I think being in Northern California and part of the whole Gilman, Northern California DIY punk scene, Lookout Records was kind of a label that we looked up to, and the bands on that label we looked up to. So it was kind of getting to that step when Larry said he wanted to make a record with us. That was, I think we were all pretty excited.
And it had did it have a fairly high sense of notoriety at that point, or was it still somewhat of a small label? I mean, I know Green Day had released at least one album by that
Lookout
point.
had a pretty large level of notoriety in the DIY scene. I think outside of that, not so much.
And as I mentioned, you were playing on the label and playing around the Bay Area at the same time as Green Day. Was that, I mean, were they a band that you had any idea would go to the places that they went to, or was it kind of a surprise that they're as big
I don't
as
know.
they
I get
are?
asked that question a lot, actually. I mean, 20-something years later. Looking back on it, I think I can see now that they were destined to be rock stars. They had, great melodies, great songs. They kind of had that it factor.
Yeah.
I think being 21 years old and seeing them then, I didn't respect it or gravitate towards it. It was a little too bubblegummy for me. Not that I'd want them to hear that, but I guess it's on tape now.
I won't tell them. And on the contrary, were there any bands that you saw or performed with that you thought really should have gone farther than they did in the scene?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, Jawbreaker were a band we looked up to and played a number of shows we were friends with, but kind of looked at them as sort of being, better than us, kind of being the next level. They did achieve a fair level of notoriety, but they were a big band for us.
Okay.
Another band, real quick, was Victims Family from Santa Rosa, California, who, to this day, they've maintained a pretty intense cult following.
Yeah.
They were kind of big brothers to us.
Very cool. And if I can switch a little bit, you're now playing in a band called Trouble Cuts. How did that band come about?
Well, it's that's a long story, but not so long. I've been playing music on and off for since I was younger than you. 30 years now or something. I've been playing in a number of bands in Portland over the years. The kind of main songwriter of Trouble Cuts, I've known him he's from Northern California too, so I've crossed paths with him a number of times over the years. And we were both playing in different bands in Portland and played some gigs together, and it was just one of those things where it was like, yeah, let's form a band together someday, and it happened.
Yeah, and it's a very different musical style, obviously, from Nuisance. Was that something you intentionally sought out, or was it just naturally how that came?
I think it's all kind of natural. I
Okay.
mean, Nuisance was 20-something years ago. It's a lot changes.
Yeah, and on that topic, has it been fun to revisit the Nuisance stuff for the upcoming reunion show, or does it feel like a step backward almost in terms of what you're doing now? Or
No, I don't look at it as a step backwards. I look at it as, it's been a lot of fun. It's sort of taking me back to when I was younger. I'm remembering some very distinct moments in time. That's been neat to revisit that. And there's a lot of pride. I think to some degree, I kind of felt that maybe Nuisance, we didn't get the notoriety in our day that maybe we deserved, and this is a chance to revisit that for an evening.
Definitely. And so how do you feel the music scene in general kind of has progressed since you were in this DIY scene back in the early 90s, and how do you feel it's really changed since then? And
That's going to take several days to answer that question. Real short, I don't know. I mean, I'm almost 47 years old now, so my way of interacting and looking at music and the music scene, I'm just in a different place in my life, so I look at it a lot differently. My time in, playing in the Bay Area and Gilman Street and Lookout Records, that was a special time, and I think there was some real magic being created then. And I look back on that really fondly. I don't really, my kind of connection to playing music now is a little bit different. I guess I'm not as emotionally wrapped up in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I still enjoy it. I get a big kick out of it. I do a lot, but it's a different sort of emotional attachment to it now that I'm in my 40s and have a job and kids and all that than when I was 21 years old.
Yeah, and you mentioned in a previous conversation we had about kind of Portland's lack of like all ages venues being, you play a lot of bars, you mentioned, and that's again very different from how it was when you were playing in the Bay Area. And do you feel like that's something that's changed at all since?
Well, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know much about Portland's all-ages scene because, once again, because I'm almost 47 years old, I'm kind of in a different world now. I get the sense that there is one, but maybe it's not as visible to me. I really don't know how big or how small it is. I would like to learn. I would like to have some connection to it because I think there's a vibrancy with, folks of your generation. You get a connection to music that's pretty emotional and pretty intense. At least for me, when I was that age, my connection to music was really intense.
Definitely.
And I kind of feel folks, once you get to be my age, your connection to music's a little bit different. And I would like to know more about the Portland all-ages scene, if there even is one. I don't really have a connection into it right now.
Definitely. And so, because of that, do you find yourself not being able to discover new music as well as you were when you were a kid, or is?
That's a good question. I mean, I think we have a lot of technologies now that make finding new music easier. When you look at all the streaming technologies and websites and all of that sort of thing. On the one hand, it's easier to find new music from around the world, but not kind of being immersed in the bands in your community. And I don't want to say I miss it. I mean, there's a lot of bands in the Portland community that are of my generation that are playing original music. There's a lot of them. And that's kind of the world I'm in right now with music. But it is different, like you said. It's playing in bars, and it's kind of a different vibe than I think playing all ages shows.
And so what do you really, along with kind of relearning the songs for the Nuisance reunion, has there been any particular memories relating to Nuisance or playing shows that have come back to you? You've posted a few posters on Facebook and stuff.
I think over the years I've realized that Nuisance touched a small number of people around this country. Not a great number of people, but a small number of people that Nuisance has resonated with them 20 years later on. I mean, even before you and I connected on all of this, maybe once a year I would get a random email or Facebook posting from someone somewhere in the United States. Hey, I don't know if you remember me in Little Rock, but Nuisance played at my living room and just wanted to reach out and say hi. So revisiting these Nuisance songs has kind of reminded me of that, of sort of the way we were able to touch a few people around the country. And it's just kind of neat to remember that.
Yeah. And from what I asked around when originally planning this Lookouting show, Nuisance was one of the bands that everyone's like, you'll never get them back. Was there a reason that kind of came about, and what changed your minds to come back for this one show? Not that I want to change the fact that you're playing. I want you to still play.
No, I mean, this is, I don't know how much I want to reveal. I think, we've been asked a few times over the years to play reunion shows, and I was always hesitant to do it. I think I was the first one to say, no, I don't want to do it. I think for me, a little bit, I was kind of stuck on this idea that time and place of Nuisance was really special, and I didn't want to somehow tarnish it by trying to relive it 20 plus years later. And I think, honestly, what happened, I got over myself. I mean, honestly. And I think some of it was the fact that this was a Lookout Records thing with whatever, 20 or 30 bands who haven't played together in 20 plus years, including some friends bands who were, especially Monsula. I think when I saw Monsula agreeing to do it, I thought, hey, if they're doing it, we should probably do it too. But I think more than anything, it was kind of me getting over my hang-ups about it.
And did you approach this in a mind, like, you've probably seen other bands that you've loved reunite before, and do you kind of, Does a band reuniting almost feel like you're kind of giving in to something? As you mentioned, you put this era behind you, and it
Yeah.
is as it is, and you're opening it up to changing the history of it. And is that something that you, like if Jawbreaker were to come back,
Yeah.
do you think it would be something that you would be really excited about, or would you think, oh, well, they were good, why are they coming
I
back?
think if you asked me this question a few years ago, I would say most bands shouldn't get back together. You should leave the special moment in time happen, and let's leave it as this special memory.
Okay.
Kind of getting back to what I said, I kind of got over myself, or my feelings on that have changed.
Yeah.
You know, there's. You know, I don't expect Nuisance to perform, you know, in January like we did when we were 22 years old in 1992. But I think we'll, you know, I mean, it'll be fun. We're going to connect with a lot of old friends. I'm really looking forward to it. A lot of friends I haven't seen in years are coming out to the show. And to me, it's almost like a family reunion of sorts. And that, to me, is really what's most exciting.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for talking to us. So I have about one more question. Where can people find your music, both for, I mean, Nuisance, I don't know if it's available on demand, but Trouble Cuts, it's online.
Troublecuts.com. We've got a website. There's songs on there that are available for download free. There's a Bandcamp page too. Nuisance, there's a few websites with some Nuisance. If you Google it, I think you go like down to the 7th or 8th Google page, and there'll be some link to Nuisance Band. But
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kylie. Thanks
Thank
for
you, Alex.
joining us.
Was that weird?
Great job.
Thank you.
Hello? 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 Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Oh, like this?
Yeah, maybe also your friend. Okay, and then
One sec. Hello.
and then you just speak to each other. All right, so it goes 10 minutes, and at 9 minutes I'll give you 1 minute time.
All right.
I got a big round of applause.
Hi, so this is Max. He's 20 years old and he's involved in an array of musical projects. He plays bass in one band, guitar in another band, and he produces electronic music under the name Mr. Pancake. So that's kind of what I wanted to start off talking about. Your most recent Mr. Pancake release was called Dolphins. And I don't know, just listening to it, I guess it was like kind of bitter and almost frenzied at times. And I mean, more above all, it kind of gave me the sense that you were trying to tell a story through it. So I wanted to know if there was an element of storytelling involved, or kind of like a story that tied it together.
I guess a loose story. I really kind of figured out what it was about more when it was done, because I finished this thing like what was this? And I guess I've loosely kind of figured out it was about my relationship to the city of Los Angeles. And I don't live there. I live in like Orange County, which is like 40 minutes from LA. And like the name Mr. Pancake came from an experience my dad and uncle had in LA. And they're at like a weird dive bar, and this guy was running around telling everyone he was Mr. Pancake, like really loudly and energetically. And being from Orange County and like the suburbs is just quite boring. I think I always fantasized like LA and like the weirdos and just like the different groups of people that were in LA, and like where I live is very homogenous. So I guess like loosely it's just based on like the absurdity of LA and like what I admire about Los Angeles.
So would you say it's kind of more based on like the dark side of LA than like the glamorous side? That
Yeah, that too, because yeah, obviously like Los Angeles and the media and like the most beautiful people in the world live there. And just like I don't live there, so I can't really say what it's like, but being there, you know, seeing like the darker stuff and the weirder stuff, like my grandma got mugged and stuff in LA, it just makes me think about like, yeah, I don't know what's underneath the surface, I guess.
So you've been doing music, like electronic music production, for only about a year. So do you think kind of like switching into that has changed the way you conceptualize music, just because like it's you know, it's putting the progression of music in time into like a 2D computer screen representation of it?
Yeah, it's definitely changed, I guess, how I conceptualize music, in the sense that like I've just learned how hard it is to produce music, because I've always been in bands and we've recorded, but I've just like played bass or guitar or drums or whatever, and then like, okay, then someone else figures out how to make it sound good. I'm just gonna play well. But I don't know, I've like realized that half the battle is coming up with an idea, and then the other half is making something sound good. And I've really internalized that, I guess, working with electronic music now, compared to as before. I didn't really think about that too much.
So what role did music play in your life growing up? Were you exposed to a lot of electronic music, or was it mostly other genres?
Growing up, it was never electronic music. My uncle and my dad both just like hard rock, like Led Zeppelin or like Black Sabbath and stuff. And then my uncle really got me into Queens of the Stone Age, which is more contemporary. But then, so no electronic music growing up, no.
So like, you know, those bands we were listing, like Black Sabbath, Queens of the Stone Age, not like super listened to at the school and like in this social environment, I feel like. So do you think do you think you bring something unique to the bands that you play in here because of that different angle on music?
Possibly, I guess. I don't know how unique it is, but just maybe more of a noise aspect I like to do in bands that may not be as noisy beforehand. I maybe push that into the bands I do more, but yeah.
And then also like just playing guitar versus playing bass, do you think you like take inspiration from different places?
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely wasn't a conscious thing, but I've just like noticed that my bass playing sounds more like Radiohead, like the bass, because maybe I've just internalized that more than the guitar parts. And like Tame Impala, like that bass sound, like that really compressed, like big deep end sound has been something I really liked. And then guitar, maybe more of like classic rock or like Queens of the Stone Age or like Ty Segall have been more influences. But that was never like a conscious decision. I guess that's just what happened.
So you're from Orange County. Do you think that
music, both playing music and listening to music, are kind of approached differently here in Portland and at the school than they are back home?
Yeah, it's radically different. In Orange County, people listen to more electronic dance music, like Flume, or I can't name any others, but like stuff like that. And there's people who make music, but it's a lot of DJs, a lot of producers, and that's kind of it. And here, I mean, it definitely seems like there's more people who play like rock music or indie rock music, or even like more people who play classical instruments too. I guess that would be definite. And the music scene here is just, I don't know, maybe it's because I like the music scene here more. Maybe there's like an Orange County music scene. I'm not aware of that stuff, but yeah, it seems more vibrant here.
Okay, and just like in terms of, I mean, it seems here like there's a focus on like seeing live music and like going to see bands play. And do you think that's part of life in Orange County?
I think you can find it. I don't think it's as prevalent, but like I found a way because it's still close to LA, and there's like a venue like 10 minutes from where I live in like Santa Ana, the Observatory, where like a lot of really cool bands come to play. So yeah, I mean, I think it's easier to find here, and like my friends from Orange County who I played music with who go to different schools, like they have a really hard time going to shows and forming bands or playing music with other people. Where here it was like the first week I was in a band.
Yeah. So kind of shifting pace here a little bit to like less in-depth questions. Do you have a story about like your worst experience performing music, like a time when you were playing and it just went like terribly wrong?
Yes. Yeah. I was probably 13, and I was playing in my band called Kine. I was playing bass, and one of our friends who just kind of hung around the band and helped us like carry stuff had weed, and we were like, oh, it'd be a good idea. It'd be so like cool of us. We're 13 to like smoke weed before a show, but it was not a cool idea at all, and like we didn't suck, but we got up like beforehand. But we got up there, and it was like you couldn't really hear anyone else, even if you weren't stoned, just because it was like the sound wasn't great. But maybe that was it. But we started the first song and we messed up so terribly we all had to stop. And the guitar player like just went into the mic and was like, "I'm sorry, we need to try that again." And then I don't really remember the rest of it because I was so frightened.
Yeah.
And it was probably the worst experience of my life. But which I guess that's pretty cool if that was the worst experience of my life because it wasn't that bad. But yeah, that was my worst playing experience for sure.
Do you think that like having that experience made you less afraid of failure in future performances?
Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah, maybe. I think I've noticed from playing a lot of shows now, I realize no one really notices that you mess up unless it's like catastrophic. And even when it is catastrophic, some people were like, didn't understand that we fucked up so badly. That's why we restarted. Like you could have just said it was like the amp or something. I think that experience, has just shown me that like it's not like people don't care, but no one really cares as much as you do.
Yeah.
So when you mess up, no one notices.
That's a good way to look at it. And then I guess one final question. So you have a Radiohead tattoo on your arm.
I do.
Do you want to like roll up your sleeve?
This is a hard sleeve to roll up.
So kind of like why did you get that tattoo, or what? I mean, other than the obvious, like it's inspired by Radiohead, but like why did you choose that?
I don't know. I'd wanted a tattoo for a while, and I was like, all right, if I get a tattoo, it's going to be on there for a good while, so it should be something I'm pretty certain I'll enjoy for my life. And I was like, like Radiohead, like, you know, they've already made all these great albums. Like, they can't fuck up too bad now where I would hate them. Like, it'd be impossible. So it was that, and then just, I don't know, just to memorialize, like, love of music in general. It's just like a good reminder. You know, it's always there if you're, like, not in a good mood. So, you can play music or something, yeah.
Radiohead is definitely a tattoo-worthy band, I would say.
I agree.
Well, thank you so much for answering my questions.
Thanks, thanks for having me.
What seat? Jack Jameson.
Okay, you're good. All right, we're going to camera ready. And Gwen will do a little sound check. How about Julia?
Test.
Oh, yeah. Talking. Good.
Can you hear me? Are you picking me up?
Okay, whenever you're ready, it'll be 10 minutes. At 1 minute, I give her 1 minute this, and then she'll know how to wrap it up.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, wait, round of applause.
All right, we're lucky to have David Evans with us here tonight. He actually just came from a gig, so it's pretty cool. So he's had a very extensive professional career playing saxophone. He's played with B.B. King, Nicholas Payton, Johnny Mathis. He's currently a member of the Chuck Israels Orchestra and an instructor here at Lewis and Clark, the saxophone. So I was just kind of wondering, I think if I remember correctly, you grew up in Alabama, Southeast?
That's right. So speak
Yeah.
slowly and use small words.
All right. Yeah. I was just wondering, how did you start getting into music?
My family was musical. I've heard similar stories from friends of mine who were astonished when they went to visit other people's houses and find that there are people who don't play music all the time, all day, everybody in the family. So I'm one of 6 kids and they're all musical. Both of my parents were musical, so it just seemed like a normal thing to do.
Yeah, I didn't have much of a choice.
No choice.
Was your first instrument saxophone?
Yes, my
Yeah.
mother was a great musician and an excellent pianist, and she tried to teach me piano, but I resisted. And she said, well, one day you're going to wish you could play better, and sure enough, I do every day. But when I got old enough to join the beginning band in our schools, she called the band director and said, what do you need? And he said, well, I guess we could use a saxophone player, and I know somebody that has one for sale. And that's fortunate because the saxophone is a pretty easy instrument. Because if she'd gotten me, I don't know, French horn or something, then maybe I'd be doing something else.
Wow, that's interesting. So you didn't actually choose the saxophone. It just kind of happened.
Not really. I just kind of, there was a lot of good luck involved, and then it just turned out to be an instrument that was immediately accessible, and immediately I could hear that I could just play it the way I chose to play. And as soon as I started to listen to other saxophonists, I heard that they all kind of had an individual voice on the instrument, and just the longer I stayed with it, the more I saw what could be done with it. And as soon as I started to hear people playing extemporaneously, jazz musicians, or of course when I was growing up, popular music that was on the radio had horns all the time, funk bands, the Commodores and the Ohio Players and Earth, Wind and Fire. And so all my life I was surrounded by the sound of a saxophone, and it just seemed like a thing that I could access, and that I was interested in accessing.
Who were some of your favorites?
Wow.
When you were younger.
When I was young, it was the guys on the records, the guys on the pop records. Grover Washington Jr. was on the radio. Stanley Turrentine had some kind of sort of simple bluesy kind of semi-pop music. David Sanborn was big. He was on other people's records like Carly Simon or James Taylor. There'd be a saxophone solo. It would likely be Sanborn. I guess I had been playing for a few years before I discovered Charlie Parker, who really changed music. He was a virtuoso and a genius, as were John Coltrane and Sonny Rollins. So those guys came a little bit later. And they're all different, and they all have something different, and I don't think that you discard one when you become infatuated with the next one. You just keep on getting broader in your interests, and everybody has something really fulfilling to give you. last night I bought a CD online, a collection on iTunes.
Yeah.
There is the National Jazz Museum in Harlem, a fellow named Lawrence Schoenberg, who came into possession of this huge trove of recordings that were made off of the radio. So it's like live performances of great people. And I got a collection last night of Lester Young, who, when I was a kid, I had zero interest in Lester. And now he breaks my heart. Everything he plays is so beautiful and graceful. And when you hear him in the context of his time and his peers, he was from another planet. He was so modern. Anyway, you know, everybody's got something.
Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting that your taste, you know, you can see how your tastes change.
Yeah. They do. And every now and then I'll get a record out that I haven't listened to in 20 or 30 years. And maybe I'll love it more because there's something I'm aware of now that I was not before. Maybe I will feel a slight sense of shame for ever having loved it as much as I did. But you do change.
Yeah, you do. I was wondering, so as a musician, with your level of accomplishment, you've been playing a really long time. So I was wondering, I was wondering if there's, what are kind of fresh ways that you approach how you play, or ways of thinking out of the box that you can approach your instrument in a new way?
One thing that I believe is, let's see, you know, there are a couple of ways you can approach becoming a musician, and one is like you can approach it from a theoretical perspective and a formal technical approach, and you can try to avail yourself of whatever sort of material has been amassed about your particular interest, and then try to learn to play that just to the best of your ability. And on the other hand, you can listen and imitate. You can play unconsciously and extemporaneously and transparently, and you can deal with music the same way you deal with language. And you can acquire your musical skill the same way you acquire linguistic skills. And I suppose already I've sort of telegraphed what I prefer, or what I think is the most valuable, or what certainly has been the most valuable to me. I always played by ear first, and my acquisition of, say, knowledge of music theory and things like that was really more a matter of me learning labels to affix to things that I already understood. And as a musician who was aurally oriented and accustomed to playing extemporaneously and comfortable playing extemporaneously, I've had great opportunities to play in many, many different styles, because if I can hear what people are doing and I can understand the vibe of what they're doing, I can understand the tonality. If they're doing something unusual harmonically, I can hear it. And if I'm accustomed to just immersing myself in that context without preparation, then I'll just play. I'll just generate something that I believe fits. And consequently, I've gotten to play with a lot of different kinds of musicians. And I'm on it's a variety of people that I perform with. Like we were just a minute ago talking about a musician named Martin Zarzar, who's definitely a world music person and a composer. And he's hired me many times to come in and add instrumental solos, saxophone, clarinet, bass clarinet on his recordings, and we play live together. I played in blues bands. I played in an incredible R&B band back when I lived in Alabama. I played in a band in Tuskegee called Smoke. We were a house band in a club that was owned by one of the members of the Commodores, and just whatever kind of music. I played sort of pseudo classical jazz. I've done concerts with like Portland Chamber Orchestra where we had to play in a sort of sonically legitimate way. I'm in Chuck Israel's band. He's got a very specific idea of what he wants to hear, and I really had to immerse myself in the music that he likes before I could understand how to play what he wanted to play. So, to answer your question, I've never been bored for a minute because there's been such a variety of things coming my way, and everything either challenges me in a new way, or I never feel like I get in a rut, because tomorrow, if it's a different sound, every time you're surrounded by different things, your imagination responds in different ways, and you come up with a new take on what you do. Even when I had a job where I had to play pretty much the same music every day, I had a band on a boat for 7 years.
Wow.
And we naturally had to play music that people wanted to hear. And there were musicians that I hired in my band who would get frustrated by having to repeat those old chestnuts. But what I did was I always looked out into the audience and I saw a person out there who didn't hear me play that song last week or the week before or the week before, and who wasn't sick of it. And I would try to get into that person's head and imagine how they felt hearing this song that they love that maybe they haven't heard in 20 or 30 or 50 years.
Wow.
So that's how I avoid feeling like I'm in a rut. And the world drags me out of a box. I'm never in the box.
Never in the box. Yeah, I think we're almost out of time, but I had one more question for you before we finish. And jazz has been around for a really long time, and it's constantly evolving. I was just wondering, how do you think it's going to evolve in the future?
I have played a lot with a composer, an interesting, smart man named Dave Frischberg, and we would drive to gigs out of town together, tell stories and have discussions. And one of the things he said that I really liked, he said, jazz is not a body of repertoire, jazz is a way of dealing with music. And I really like that idea. And what that means is you want to be as complete a musician as you can be. You want to understand harmony and theory. You want to have developed your ear so you can hear what people are playing. If somebody does something extemporaneously, you want to be able to understand what they're doing so you can respond to it. And you want to think like a composer, and you want to try to think extemporaneously, and you want to be able to play your instrument well enough to be able to express those ideas as they come to you so that they're able to come out unfettered, transparently, extemporaneously, like conversation. So I think he's right about that. And I don't think anybody's gonna learn how to play bebop, which was a very highly evolved and complex style of music that came about in the late 40s and into the early 50s. There are still people who want to be bebop saxophone players, but I think they're gonna be unhappy. But the things that they learn about playing extemporaneously and playing in the style of the music that they're confronted with will serve them well. And no matter what the music does, they can function as a jazz musician and respond to whatever context comes their way, which is one thing that I really try to help the people that I work with, the people who study with me. I try to help them deal with music as a jazz musician would, without necessarily trying to mold them into being a specific purveyor of a specific style of jazz music.
Yeah, I mean, as one of your students, I can definitely confirm that you do that. So.
Yeah, well, you're one of the star students. So.
All right. Well, thank you, and thanks for coming.
Thank you. I enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah.
As I said,
You're going to put this on the right side of her.
Hello.
And we'll get
Sound.
him- yeah,
Sound. Check. Check.
yeah, he's coming through. Okay,
Sound.
Hello.
Alright, and then you can face each other a little bit more. There, okay. So it's 10 minutes of interview, and at 1 minute, I'll give you the 1 minute. All right, enjoy it. Round of applause.
All right. I'm here today with Connor James, musician, student, and friend. Connor's a sophomore here at Lewis and Clark and hails from Silver Spring, Maryland. He also plays in a band called Small Dad. So first, before we really get started, can you tell me a little bit about your own personal musical background?
Sure. Well, I took some like music lessons as like a little elementary school person. I think cello and piano, but never really gripped me. And then when I was in high school, me and my friends, we like wanted to make like comedy videos. So we sort of did like a Spinal Tap thing, and for like a little while, and it was
Yeah.
like really like not good,
Yeah.
and like whatever. And then that like petered out, and we had like had like staged all these scenes where we were like in like a studio and stuff, and
Yeah.
we were like, oh, like we should like actually make a band. And then we started a folk punk band, which was like another sort of like mistake. And I like played guitar and banjo, but like primarily guitar. But I was like really happy to learn some banjo because it's like a really
Yeah.
lovely instrument.
I agree.
And then like we sort of realized that like we had never actually made like folk punk stuff. We were just making folk music.
Yeah.
But we just like thought it was cool to be punks. And then so we sort of like stopped doing that. And then Small Dad was like a few members of that high school band and then some other friends of ours. And so yeah, dabbling with music since probably like 8th grade, I don't know, but never seriously until like junior year of high school.
And so do you think, is there anything specific that really pushed you from like casual musician to like more of a serious one? Was it just kind of like, it just was what felt right, or was there, I don't know.
I think it was a mixture of like first going to more concerts with like, and that sort of like coincided with like more listening to music more critically.
Yeah.
And thinking more about the things that I actually liked when I heard music. And then it was a mixture of that and my good friend Jasper, who drums in Small Dad, and they're like, their dad was like a photographer of like the DC like 80s punk movement, and like in their house is where there's like a drum set and like all this studio equipment stuff, and so they drew me into that world, and I couldn't be more thankful. But yeah, and then like experiencing just like being at concerts and how cool that could be.
Kind of wanting to be that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And then like as soon as you perform once at like the small shitty show where like a few of your friends have come to, it just like, feels so sick, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is dope. But yeah, and then that sort of developed, and it was like a cool way to just like socialize and take something seriously.
Definitely. Yeah. So kind of going off that, I know you mentioned to me a little bit that Silver Spring is very close to DC, and so you kind of have a lot of like cultural influences, and with like you mentioned, DC has this very, very rich musical history. So do you think that's like impacted you musically, the DC proximity?
Yeah, definitely. Like there's so much music and history going on in DC. Like I mentioned, that the punk sort of thing, and then there was this one guy who was sort of like a local legend, and his like performing name was Spoon Boy. He's this guy David Combs, and like he performed at like house shows and occasionally at like bigger venues too. He like worked at like the bar at like one of the DC venues and was just sort of like the idea of like the kind of thing you could become if you were involved in the music scene. Be like, oh, like work at the music like venue and like play shows every now and then, and he was like the like total opposite of like, I feel like I don't know, the sort of negative, like, you know, stereotype of a musician who's just like totally like a dick. Like, this guy was so
Right.
friendly, and like talked to him at a show, and he's like really awkward and like anxious and just whatever, and then gets on stage and like
Sure.
kills it and like turns into a whole nother person. And so like I think, and he had like a more like electric punk band called the Max Levine Ensemble, and is now in a band called Bad Moves, I'm pretty sure. But that sort of like sound that he did was like a more DIY punk version of like what I feel like now is going on in the like
Sure,
trendy indie scene with people like Frankie Cosmos or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the Epoch folks or whatever.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so if I'm not mistaken, your Small Dad, at least the members, you guys all live, or at least you live away from Silver Spring, which is where the band is from, and I assume probably some other members do too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is kind of an interesting band dynamic, I feel like, being like a band that's together, but like locationally apart. And so how do you think that's affected, you know, the band?
Yeah, so the bass player of the band is at Reed, which is like a lucky coincidence.
yeah.
But then everyone else is like, we got like Chicago and Philadelphia, and one of our bandmates is abroad in London right now, and so like we've like tried to Skype a few times this year, and it's just like a 5 time zone, like crazy, like
I'm sure that's
doesn't make any sense. And but yeah, like I mean the band like came together, and like we've like recorded some songs and like released a thing, and everything was like recorded, and we played some shows in like 2 months in the summer, which was like a total just like I don't know, it was like this really, really great experience, and then all of a sudden we have to like all be so split apart, which like sucked because just wanted to like work on it more and like have more time to like curate the sound of the album and like, you know, make it like fine tune it, but we really wanted to get something out, and we didn't have much time. And so now we basically just like have like a group chat and like, you know, message each other ideas and stuff.
Sure.
And but yeah, a lot of it has just been like, you know, we're all friends, so like we communicate anyways. We like booked some shows for winter back in Maryland, and but yeah, it's definitely been like really cool to see like the response to like the band, but it's been difficult because like you can't talk to anybody about ideas or new songs or anything like that. Yeah.
And so do you guys still, are you still like writing songs and preparing sort of for when you reunite?
Yeah. I think like most of us have bits and pieces of things we want to bring back to the band, and like by the summer when we like first started, everyone sort of had like 2 or like a song that they had like pretty much fully idealized, like or you know, thought of the structure or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we all sort of like created parts for that, but we really want to do more like collaborative writing, and so like we're sort of like halting ourselves for a moment and like have like a guitar part or like have an idea for like a theme, but we want to like
Bring it to
compose more
everyone else,
together when we have more time together.
Definitely. So I guess this could be a difficult question to answer, but do you have any sort of, is there a goal with Small Dad for you, or like, I guess maybe a better way to say that, like, what do you see in the future for Small Dad? And maybe you don't know.
Yeah. Well, definitely
Be
like
as ideal. As
yeah, like I think so. Like right now, we have we have like booked some shows for the winter time, and like we're like I don't know. I certainly feel like this is the most like legit project I've ever been a part of, and so like we've gotten like we used to be playing like in like really great like small local like DIY places or like houses and stuff, and like for the winter we've gotten our first show at like a pretty like established spot at Comic Ping Pong, which like I don't know, you may have heard is like there's some like drama there. There's like I don't know, but we're that's like a place where like that is like in our conscious, and that we would go to and like saw some like people that like we knew as like artists, and so like it's like really cool to be able to be playing there. And yeah, like we want to make some more releases, like start getting on that, maybe do like shorter EP stuff, and then we're also thinking of doing like a West Coast tour right at the start of the summer. But like beyond that, we've only like fantasized or hypothesized and stuff. Like, yeah, I mean, like, I think all of us are like have pretty like eclectic interests and things.
Yeah.
And we're sort of like timidly like watching like the responses to what we've made so far and being like, oh, like, you know, people we don't know are like messaging us, and like that's crazy. Like that's
cool.
that's so sick. But like at the same time, we're sort of like, you know, we're in college,
kind of,
so like sort of focus on
roll
that.
with it.
Yeah.
See how
yeah.
stuff goes. Have you ever thought about, or have you? Yeah. Well, okay. I guess we only have short time left, so I have one more question. In your opinion, why does art matter?
Oh my God. Well, I feel like, woo! Art is, what is art? Art, so I don't know. I think
You can
that.
choose not to answer.
No, I could probably, I can totally say a few things on that. I mean, I think that, well, I don't know. I'll just talk from like a personal experience because I'm not going to try to like make up any like blankets or anything. But I've found that for me, learning about art has, I feel like, given me the richest lens through which to like engage with the world. Because like, I don't know, I feel like the things that are like trying to be grasped by art are the things that are like on like the threshold of what is like already been brought forth, established, or known, in a sense. And so like, if art is good, it should be like on that threshold where it's like, you know, this is something that like might not be out there, or it's like it's harder to grasp or whatever. And I don't know, you're sort of just like pulling like something out of like a like infinity or something. I don't know. That's
Absolutely.
super like
No,
cheesy,
I-
but like I don't know.
it's not at all.
It's like, I don't know. I like to think of it as like, you know, we have like a sort of like, you know, like I don't know, with like something like writing, like you have like an alphabet that already exists, and you're sort of just like exploring like a language that is given to you, and like, and in that sense, it's almost like the things that are created are actually already there. You're just sort of like finding them.
Yeah.
And that sense has been the thing that has made me feel the most excited to be alive. So
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining me. You can
Thank you for
find
having me.
Small Dad on Bandcamp, Spotify. They're great. Give them a listen.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll see you in Portland sometime soon
Yeah,
as a
absolutely.
band.
Mhm.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You guys are on, good timing. So let's talk about who have we got in this? Yeah, ready? All right, let's go to the camera. All right. Hi, nice to see you again. Hi, welcome back. Okay, so you guys sit down. And go here on, you're gonna put this on the left side of you. That side. Just make sure that you're good. We'll do a sound check. Make sure you turn that on. Sound check each person, please.
Hi, sign.
Okay, and go ahead.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we're good. So the format is 10 minutes. At 1 minute, I'll give a 1 minute sign, and then Grace will wrap it up. Okay, take it away.
Okay, hi everyone. I want to just start off by
saying that my voice is terrible today, so I'm sorry. But I'm really grateful that my former coworker, Jose Huape, can be here today. And we're going to be talking about music. Jose he studies biology here, and we met through the CELS program. So my first question for you is, I know you're one of those people who can work and listen to music at the same time. Does music help you focus?
Yeah, I would say music definitely does help me focus, whether it's cooking, whether it's like exercising, or whether it's like playing video games. It just helps me like focus and like hone in as to like what I'm doing particularly.
Is it like a specific kind of music that helps you?
It really depends. So for instance, if I'm like cooking, it's like more alternative or like mellow music that I'll be listening to. And then if I'm like working out, it's more of like rock, metal, something that just gets like blood flowing.
Okay. What would you say is the role that music plays for you just daily?
Daily, I would say it's just kind of like a ritual. Like you kind of wake up in the morning, you have like breakfast, and then you have some music on the side. It's just one of those things where like you kind of just enjoy and you like take it in. Kind of like the birds chirping in the morning. It's like that for me though.
So it's like a pattern of the same kind of. Okay. What kind of songs or genres do you listen to now, or what kind did you listen to growing up?
So growing up, so I come from like a very Mexican family. So you have the grandma who's like cooking, but also listening to like Ramon Ayala or corridos or things like that. And so she'll be singing along with it. And coming here, I like missed a lot of that. And then I would hear a lot of the like housekeeping people listening to it while we were working over the summer. And it was just like, whoa, I'm back home basically. So that was really fun. But in terms of like how it plays a role, it's just,
Yeah. So about Mexican music, do you ever like seek it out at times? Like, do you ever find yourself looking for it?
Yeah. It would be like during car rides or something, just when I'm like missing home.
Yeah.
I would tend to go back and like put on Pandora or something, especially like listening to like narco corridos and stuff. And so I'll just like put it on while I'm driving, going through the freeway and just like cruising around Portland basically.
How do you find that English music compares to non-English music?
I would say it's kind of just the like the feeling of it, the beat that goes with it, as well as just kind of like the lyrics. Even though you may not understand them fully, you could kind of just sense what someone is singing about based on like their voice or how they like project it.
Okay, so so I guess, do you think that like understanding the lyrics of a song helps you appreciate it more, or does it not really make a difference?
So I'm going to give a story if that's okay.
Yeah.
So when I was in New Zealand, and this pertains to the question, we had a drum festival, or I went to this drum festival. So I was traveling around through the North Island, and I came across, you know, people who were just kind of like drumming out and just hanging out, and wanted to join them because I really enjoyed like the beats that they were playing and just like the feel that they were having together. And so when I joined them, it was just like a huge variety of things. We had people from Africa, we had people from Mexico, other people from Australia. It was just like a hodgepodge of people just like there playing. And even though like some people were like talking and some people were like actually like spouting words in their language, like we were all communicating but through sound. So if that's any indication of how like lyrics pertain to music, it's just the feel of it.
Okay, yeah. So I guess a related question, like some people have the opinion on K-pop that there's an appeal of not being able to understand what they're saying and kind of like put your own interpretation of what they're saying onto the music. Do you think that that can be dangerous, or is it okay to do?
I feel that it's one of those like gray areas where if you have someone who's kind of like knows what the genre is about, and specifically with K-pop, there's people who are just like religiously always listening to it and just always kind of like know what it's kind of saying, but then there's others who are not and just enjoying like the beats that go with what K-pop is. And I feel that with that, it's a little bit, it just depends on like where you're at and who you're with.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
No, it does. Do you listen to music that is, or foreign music that isn't other than Spanish music?
Yeah. So recently got into kind of like some like Japanese metal. It's pretty crazy. I don't know. It's really interesting. But then also like there's French alternative that I listen to as well. And then sometimes I'll listen to like Indian music or what is it called? I think it's like Bollywood.
Bollywood, yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. I like that.
Okay. Are the songs that you gravitate to that are not English, like are they of the same genre or?
It usually varies based on kind of what's on the playlist. So I'll just like pick a random playlist and just like sift through the songs as they go, and either I'll save one on the side if I really enjoyed it while I was listening to it, or I'll just kind of like, it'll play and that'll be it.
Okay.
So I'll like give it a chance, but if I don't like it, I'll just not listen to it again.
Okay. Well, you brought up Bollywood earlier, and I often listen to Bollywood when I feel homesick.
Okay.
So it serves that function for me.
Mhm.
Is there a certain song or genre of music that serves a function for you?
I would say corridos plays a huge role as to like homesickness for me. Like I was saying with the people that I've met here over the summer, the housekeeping crew, as well as like just memories I have with like my grandma and family back home. You don't necessarily get that a lot here. And so with that being said, a lot of times I find myself gravitating to a lot of corridos just to kind of be having a feeling of like being back home.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a kind of wayward question. Do you like classical music at all?
I do, actually.
Okay. So I think everyone can agree on the perception of classical music is that it's very elitist. Do you think that you can separate the music itself from its traditions, or are they like inextricably linked together?
In terms of like the notes or the instrumentation, or
like the actual just the sound of the music. Can you appreciate classical music for its sound rather than kind of the associations of its academic history and all that?
I see. Yeah. So I guess my opinion on that subject is a little biased just because I did marching band for about like 3 years in high school.
Yeah.
And so with that, well, a little bit more, but with that, I kind of just like always appreciated just how it took to like do certain like notes and certain patterns with like the music that I was playing in front of me, or even sight reading classical like pieces. And so with that, it was more of an appreciation for like the work that the artists put into making that sheet music for us to actually play and like represent them like way later in the years, even though this piece was maybe written, I don't know, a few years before, or well, 100 years before.
So it's like the idea of interpreting the music now, like interpreting music that was written at a very different time period. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that applies to music that you don't know about from maybe countries that like non-Western countries?
Oh, I see. I guess I would have to like listen to it to like see if that would be a thing. But it would be one of those cases where like if I would listen to it and then knowing its background, then I would have to like make an opinion from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you for talking with me, and thank you for listening.
Can you take this off? Okay.
Well, it's Willie's time now, so. There's Alyssa. Alyssa, do you ever be in her class? Yeah, because I think it's in the paper a little while ago, and yeah, there's just 3 more. We're on time until just right about now. But we've been on time. Yeah, I think it's fine. We get everybody the last 3 here. Yeah. Maybe it's for the bathroom. All right, we're here. Let's do it. Who would like to, Alice, you want to do this? Isn't it beautiful? All right, Alice is here. And then how about you guys, camera? And you're here. And this is. And you're going to put this on the left side of your. Excuse me, right?
This side.
Yeah, right. You'll clip that there. And you're on. Yes, you're on. And then David, you're here. You'll put this on the left side.
working.
Okay, you're good. And then David, did you speak?
Hello, here I am. Am I showing up? Is my thing on? Looks good.
All right, so it's 10 minutes. At 1 minute, I give the time, and then you'll wrap it up. So let's give David and Lily a big round of applause.
So my name is Lily Vellum. I'm accompanied by David Eby, a very accomplished cellist and educator based in Portland, and he teaches very popular cello lessons also at Lewis and Clark. I want to start out asking about your career. I was reading your bio, and you have a career that sort of had a life of its own, starting when you were 16 as a cello soloist with the Pittsburgh Symphony. Can you sort of talk about the highlights of your career and the arc that you've had?
Sure. It's always been a through line of joy ever since I saw the cello for the first time when I was 6 years old and went home and said, Mom, I want to play the cello, to going to college, going to the Eastman School of Music and studying under amazing teachers and having just amazing experiences performing under artists such as Sir George Solti. And there was this one point where he was conducting where we were doing the Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, the second movement. The cello and bass have the solo and the viola, sorry. And of course, all of us had memorized it. And so I just looked up at him and I was just staring at him and he caught my eye and he said, oh, you're paying attention to me. And then he just kind of gave me this power through his gaze. I don't know how you could describe it, but it was just so magnetic. You could tell that here was somebody in which music lived. And the joy with which he conducted and the power that he commanded our attention was just so remarkable. And then to contrast that, a number of years later after I graduated from school and I was out playing for different orchestras here and there and finding myself surrounded by miserable musicians who here they were supposed to be doing what they loved to do, and they were cynical and just uninspired, and the conductors, for the most part, were just not at Sir George Solti's level of inspiration. So
it's a high bar, though.
It was a high bar, to be sure. But yet I just said, what am I doing? I want to do something meaningful with my life, with music, that can make a difference in people's lives. So I went on a journey of musical storytelling. So I became a cellist in this musical storytelling troupe where we took music and story into elementary schools and did different programs for many years. And yet something still called me deeper. So then I became a Suzuki cello teacher and got some training. And the wonderful thing about that was the philosophy of creating not professional musicians, but beautiful human beings with beautiful hearts. And that felt like it was a really beautiful thing to do. But then I discovered that, well, not everybody that sticks a Suzuki badge on their teaching credentials is going to have that philosophy. And so then I've had, ever since then, incorporating all of these things in my search for what is the highest purpose of music for me. And for that, it has been, number one, to share joy and to uplift consciousness. And what do you mean by uplift consciousness? But I've had experiences, and maybe you have as well, where music has just taken you to a sublime place of being. And for me, it's happened in the most obscure and unassuming places, like singing in my car. It changed my consciousness so dramatically that I had to pull over to the side of the road and just say, what in the world just happened to me? So I started on this quest to find out what really happens to us through music. And there's this scientific explanation of what happens in the brain, of all of the different responses in our brain that happen through music. And it's amazing to see all the different aspects of the brain that's involved. But when we talk about our musical experience, we talk about our heart. We say that really touched me, or that struck a chord in me, or that moved me. And so there's an aspect of who we are that is far beyond the mind and what we can understand through the brain. So it's a really difficult thing to measure, but that's what I really love to do is to tap in and share, teach students how to get there on their own through meditation. So I found that meditation was the key to stilling the body, quieting the mind, and opening the heart. And I discovered that I could get to those places, those magical places, much more quickly when I did that. So that's one thing that I am doing, not only with students, with myself, but with audiences as well.
So that's been a philosophy that you've been developing for a while, this idea of mindfulness through music, and you've been sharing through beautiful videos online and in the practice room and in lessons and in the performance space. And so what has been the response to that in lessons and with audiences? How do people
Really
react?
interesting. The younger kids, the younger generation, high school and college, seem to be much more open and willing to try things. Than, you know, I've done these for older audiences as well, and some of them are, oh, that's interesting, but with the youth of today, they're just like, okay, poof, and willing to just dive right in and see how far it can go. And I've had a number of responses from kids who have gone to Tanglewood, for instance, who sing in the Pacific Youth Choir, that have said, yeah, this works.
Do you think that's a Portland youth thing, or?
That's a good question. I
could
don't
that
think
be
so, because
anywhere?
I've presented down in California as
Okay.
well.
Very cool. And so then taking that even further, you have a fairly new musical project, your trio. Do you care to talk about that at all?
Sure. So I got together with Kevin LaFawn, a violinist, a very fine violinist, and Kira Whiting, who accompanies here at Lewis and Clark often. And so we are taking this approach to music of what if we are a pioneering ensemble using meditation to enhance the listening and performing experience. So we meditate before our rehearsals, and we meditate very briefly with our audiences before performances. And so we've had some concert meditations where people come and they're just invited to go in and experience that inner music, that inner vibration of the music at a much deeper level than just you go to the concert and you're purely listening and you're doing the outward clapping, and this was just a chance to dive deep and see what would happen.
And I read a testimonial, someone said that the audience just felt so much more focused and in tune with the music, pardon the pun, just really keyed into what was happening in these performances. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it enhances concentration and participation?
Well, just because of the fact that we invite people to be fully present. So often we go to musical performances and we're checking our phones and we're worrying about tomorrow and thinking about yesterday, whereas what we're trying to do is invite people to be there in the moment with us. And what's fascinating is that as performers, you get a sense of when the audience is with you, when they are like just right there tuned in. And it's not a mental thing, it's more of a feeling thing when you just feel connected to each other and with the audience, which is thrilling.
So your career, as we've said, has gone a million places. You can't have seen yourself here doing this when you started out. But I'm wondering what you can say to musicians who are in my position, trying to make big career decisions without really knowing what's going to happen next. Yes. What you can say to sort of like inspire and encourage them to continue on that journey.
My word is this: find the why of your music, why you're doing music. There's a beautiful quote by Yo-Yo Ma that's been circulating on how he's advising young musicians such as yourself to use music as a service, to see music as a service, to be the communicators, to be the ambassadors, to help people. And I like to take that a step further and just encourage the young musicians to feel what music does for them and to share that consciously with others, because what we have inside when we perform matters a lot. And instead of just thinking, oh, I have to play these notes correctly, it's so much more than that.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. I will end by saying you have an upcoming event, January 15th, which is right when Lewis and Clark students are getting back for school, at 2:30 at the Salem Public Library with your trio. So that'll definitely be something to watch out for. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much. It's going to be on YouTube. Could you tell us where you can find the video?
So I'll send, after I make sure it's all there, I'll send the link out to you.
Okay.
Probably either tonight or early tomorrow.
Okay.
And I don't know how you want to distribute it.
I've been just sending it on. Did everyone get it this afternoon? I've just been forwarded to the class.
Yeah. Well, it's on there now. I don't have mine. We're like.
UEB at Oak Park. Well, maybe can you send it on to me? So it's on YouTube right now, and where can the kids find it? Where can students find it now? Sierra, come on in. Where is it on? Deja, how about you here?
Stick in your ass. Oh wait, is this being streamed? Yep. Is that? Yep, that's on. I think it's really is on. Streaming. Mm. Yeah, I got my. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do a sound check.
I don't have any pants to.
How about Zach?
Yep, I'm saying words. Is it okay?
Oh, I'm not ready. No, I'm not ready. Of course I'm not. It's typical.
I'm just gonna sit on my lap.
Oh, just sit on my lap.
Yeah.
That's like
So you
cute.
only see that much.
Wait, okay, this is good. Testing, test, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we're good.
Good?
So the way this goes here is 10 minutes, and in 1 minute I do this, and then Zach knows to wrap it
Fantastic.
up. All right, you're on.
Oh, great, we're on. So I'm sitting here on the hot box with Sierra Renz. She's a senior music major here. She's a vocalist, and we're just going to chat about that. So my first question then is, how long have you been singing?
Oh man, I mean, my whole life really. When I was little, I would like go up to people in the mall when I was like 3 and be like, "Let me sing for you." So I've just been kind of, performing my whole life. And then I joined a professional choir when I was 8 years old, and then was in that choir until I was about 15. And when I was about 14, started taking formal lessons with a teacher.
Oh, great. And you're from Arizona?
Correct.
Nailed it. Great. Well, so I know you also got into opera when you were young. I want to get some of your backstory about how you got into opera specifically.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, Zach, and you're not going to like the answer. Are you familiar with a little musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber called Phantom of the Opera?
No.
You know, at least I'm honest. I saw not the live musical, I saw the movie starring Emmy Rossum and Gerard Butler. And I thought it was the most spectacular thing I had ever seen. It was like, this is beautiful, the music is amazing. Mind you, I was like 9 at the time, so I didn't really know any better. But that, so that kind of like shot me into that world. And I was already a part of musical theater. So once I kind of reached 12 or 13, and I knew every word to Phantom of the Opera, I started to wonder, okay, why is this not considered an opera? Why is it considered a musical? And so I really kind of started to research at that time and was already sort of familiar with a few famous operas. But yeah, so that kind of shot me into that world. And then I got bored with it quickly and got into real opera, no shade.
But now the question is, have you seen a live performance of Phantom of the Opera?
I have not.
You have not? Okay.
No.
It's on
Never.
your bucket list.
I've seen the movie about 50 times though. All within like a year span.
Oh, well, there you go. So with that, moving back to your more less musical being musical theater, How did you end up at Lewis and Clark as opposed to a more music-focused school or a conservatory?
Well, the answer to that is sort of tenfold. And I think the most concise way I can answer that is when I was sort of graduating high school and really looking into colleges, I knew that there was a certain type of adult that I wanted to be, and I wanted to be an adult that was well-rounded, well-versed, globally minded, and just kind of aware of social issues. So that was kind of big on my radar when I was looking at like higher education institutions. And of course, music is most important to me of all the things that I learn. But I knew that I kind of wanted that foundation to make me like a really kind of smart adult in a world that is globalizing. And so I think that's really what pushed me here. And then also I was super impressed just with the music department here, the music faculty. I met Kathy Fitzgibbon and Nora Beck kind of right off the bat. And they kind of drew me in. They were so friendly and just really, really passionate, which is something I didn't get at the conservatories at all. They were kind of like, next, next, next. And I was like, okay, I need to feel important to thrive. Yeah, I need a lot of attention just in general. So I figured going somewhere where the music department was pretty small would be a really good choice for me. So.
Fascinating. And so you're happy with the decision to then
Definitely.
come here? Yeah.
No regrets.
Oh my. So, in your study of music, have you, I know you had your little fix of musical theater. Have you continued doing a mixture of musical theater and classical song, or have you shifted in a specific direction?
Not really. I have done a few musical theater competitions, which I've done well in, but I just kind of don't, I don't find musical theater very interesting, just in general. I want something that's more musically complicated. I really like singing in other languages too, so I think I'm really into something that is going to push me and is going to challenge me and is going to make me the absolute best singer and best musician I can be. And in my opinion, classical repertoire is what does that. So that's vastly what I prefer. Definitely interested in being well-versed in types of singing, but I think that's my general focus.
Yeah, fascinating. Thank you. My next question kind of backtracks to last year and then towards the beginning of this year. I know you had some vocal issues that kept you from singing to your biggest potential and kind of kept you from doing a junior recital. Would you be willing to talk about what was going on?
Yeah, and that was kind of a several-year process that led me to not be able to sing at my best, which was my freshman year of college here. I got like 7 sinus infections in 1 year, which deviated my septum because they were so severe. Yike. And so my septum was so deviated, I literally couldn't breathe through my nose at all and would like wake up in the middle of the night panicking because I couldn't breathe, or like wouldn't be able to kind of like get any ringy high notes because everything was kind of trapped. So it's just like this feeling of just like imagine singing with your nose closed. That's what it was like. And then I couldn't get surgery because my insurance wouldn't cover it, and then I finally switched insurances and then got it fixed about a year ago now. So now that's kind of been fixed and I have proper airflow.
And then you're getting back there. And you're doing a senior recital this year, is that right?
Correct.
Congratulations. Do we have a date set?
Yes, as of today.
Yes.
It's going to be April 15th
Breaking
at 7:30 in the Greg Pavilion.
Nice.
Be there. It's going to be the event.
What are
of
some
the
of
year.
the repertoire highlights that we can look forward to?
Oh boy. Let's see. I mean, I'm doing a pretty straightforward recital, so I'm doing a long, like 15-minute early song by Vivaldi, followed by some German rep that I'm really passionate about. I'm doing that really big Brahms piece that a lot of people have heard me sing, Mädchenfluch, which is like one of my favorite songs. Singing a lot of Schubert, doing a lot of Poulenc, some really good Barber pieces. So yeah, it's a good program in my opinion, but I guess I'm biased.
Yeah, well, sounds good to me too. So we've got that. I have one more kind of broad question, and that's kind of where are you looking to go after Lewis and Clark? Since you're a senior and you're finishing up, are you intending to continue going into music and studying singing beyond Lewis and Clark, or going into a different field?
Yeah, at this point I'm planning to go to grad school specifically for opera.
Okay.
I also have a lot of interest in early music, so like medieval and Baroque is something as well. My ideal would be to do an early music degree and an opera degree, like a double master's situation. I'll probably end up somewhere on the East Coast for sure. Most of the best programs, in my opinion, are out there, so far from the West Coast, unfortunately. Yeah, those are the plans.
Yes.
I know.
All right, my one final question is, what would be your ideal dream role or performance to be in or to program as a musician?
Oh boy. I think my dream is to be known as an interpreter of Brahms. So that I would love to be known around the world like, oh, you want Brahms? Get Sierra, she's so good at that. So that's I'm really interested in interpreting German repertoire in general, especially since my family is from Germany. Get to my roots. And then my dream roles tend to be just women that are outcasts or are really, really powerful. So like Salome and Tosca or the Queen of the Night or all of those kind of larger than life roles are kind of what I air to. Can you imagine why? Or pants roles are super interesting to me, like Carabino. Lots of options.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for
good
having
luck.
me.
We'll all see you at your recital on April 15th.
At 7:30 in the
7:30
Great
in the Great
Pavilion.
Pavilion. Thank you very much.
Are you done? Yeah. Just one more.
Did her thing in band. Belmont University in Nashville. You can ask again. Okay. Cool. It's been okay. It's against our bounds. Gonna have a lot of things in debt.
Before we finish, first I want to thank thank everybody, and last but not least, Lisa, everyone got a chance at the
No, it's okay. But if I turn it on, the echo will come on.
You get a fancy microphone. Okay. Anyway, I don't know. All I know is that they're things that we have now. Just clip it on. I'm assuming so. I have too much hair.
We're going to do a sound check. So Alyssa, go ahead.
All right. Hi.
Just sound
Okay. Oh, hi. Hello.
Okay. And your friend?
Sophie.
Sophie.
Hi.
And we're all good, I think.
Cool.
Okay, so it's 10 minutes. At 9 minutes, I'll give you the finger. All right, you get the idea.
good.
Hi, my name's Lissa Bragg, and this is Sophie Roning.
Ronning.
I'm so sorry.
You're good.
Sophie is yet another Lewis and Clark transfer students. We are slowly coming here and taking over. She transferred from Belmont in Nashville.
Yeah.
My bad.
No, you're good.
What did you study at Belmont?
A lot of different topics. Originally, I started as a music therapy major. And so I did that for 3 semesters, and then I dropped down, and I went undeclared for a while, and then went through a lot of other majors, and then now I'm here. But originally, yeah, I was studying music. I've been studying music since I was in probably, I think it was kindergarten is when I first started.
What got you interested in music?
I don't actually know. I really liked to sing, and I was in a lot of musicals when I was little. And I had my first solo in a musical in 1st grade. And I got up on the stage, and I was staring at the spotlight, and then the whole song went by, and I didn't sing. And I don't know why that inspired me to keep going. My teacher was like, go.
At first you don't succeed.
Yeah.
And you gotta just keep trying.
Exactly. So I don't know. I also was really bad at sports, so
Music's the next best thing.
Yeah, it was the other option. And then yeah.
So were you mostly involved with musicals growing up?
Yeah, until I was in 6th grade, and then I quit musicals, and I just kept singing. I really loved singing, and then I didn't really like to act, and I also have really terrible stage fright, so so that didn't really help with the whole acting part. I think I was just so focused on what I was trying to say that it was just it wasn't really acting. It was just me reading a script from memory, and I really like how music makes me feel, and it's something that can so easily make me cry and feel so many different emotions that I think can be difficult to feel. And so I think that was partially why I really liked the music aspect, and I really love lyrics, and also especially when they have double meanings, or they choose words that can mean multiple things, so that the sentence itself even means I don't know. I love words like poetry, and so when lyrics sound like poetry, I think it's I love investigating what they're saying, and then hearing actually what the artist meant when they were writing the song, and reinterpreting it from my perspective. So there's just a lot of learning that I think can be done with music, even just in the music I love to listen to, and so I think that's partially why I got so into it.
Do you think your emotional connection with music led you to be interested in music therapy?
Yeah, I liked the way that it felt it healed me, and I could see how it could heal others, and studying it was fascinating. I was able to work at the Vanderbilt Children's Hospital for observations. Basically, you just follow a music therapist around for a semester, and it was incredible. It was so amazing to see how she could change their whole day, or their whole month, or their whole experience of being in a hospital. I mean, I don't like hospitals, which is partially why I stopped wanting to do music therapy. But yeah, I think she was really able to make the room feel less clinical and less sterile. And a big part of it was her talking about the fact that when she goes into the room, she automatically gives the kid all the power. And that's what music therapy is doing. It's constantly empowering people. And the music therapist is just a gateway for that. They're not a star, they're not anything like that. They're just a means to empower another person who feels like they typically don't have very much power.
So you were majoring in music therapy in Nashville. Now that you're at Lewis and Clark, are you still involved in music?
Yeah, so I'm not studying it anymore, but I'm actually in one of the a cappella groups. I'm in Section Line Drive, and I really love it. It's really great.
Do you like singing recreationally more than singing or studying music in an academic setting?
Yeah, I think that I loved music therapy as an idea, and I find people who do music therapy as a career, they're incredible people. It's a lot like going through like a bar exam, or you're becoming a therapist plus becoming a musician. So I was taking 12 classes a semester and only getting 16 credits. And so it was like 9 to 5 school, and I just had a hard time making friends outside of my classes, and it was like a lot of juries, which were really difficult, where you would learn a repertoire for a whole semester, and then you'd have to know every song by heart, and then when you went into a room, you had one pick of one song, and then it was a panel of judges, and they're all teachers within your vocal department, because I was a vocal major. And so you sing one, and then they cut you off, and they tell you like the other song you're gonna sing, and you just have to like know it offhand, and then they decide what your grade is, and like whether or not you're fit to be a musician. And so it was really competitive, and it just like burned me out. I was doing so much music all the time that it just like, and like they were constantly critiquing you, and your peers were always telling you like what you were doing wrong, and it was just like I don't think I have the confidence to be able to take that much feedback, even though it was like good. It was like constructive criticism. I think I was just like, I think it was too much.
Yeah, understandably.
Yeah. And they also, like music therapists also, their settings that they work in are typically like hospitals, and so they work in like children's hospitals, mental hospitals, schools for like the disabled, and like all these different places that like I don't necessarily, I like to be outside, and I like to switch up my environment a lot, and typically like when you start in a certain place, like you remain in that space for like years and years so that you can create a clientele base, and then you can have your own private practice. And so it's very much like you become a therapist that people come and see, and they like, so you want to stay in one location so that people start to get to know you within that area, and it just seemed like a lot for me.
What is the day-to-day job of a music therapist? Is it singing to children? Is it teaching children music?
It really is all over the board. So when I was following that music therapist around, we would go, like you'd go into some rooms, and sometimes it was like a baby that you were interacting with, and they were in the hospital for like a month, like because they had like heart surgery or something. And so in that situation, you would typically sing with the mom who's holding the child in order for the child to feel safe, but also start to like internalize their mom's voice. And then in another situation, we were with like a 15-year-old, and that kid wanted to learn how to like write music, and so the music therapist worked with him on how to write and compose and create lyrics. And then there was another kid that just wanted to learn how to play all different types of instruments, and so she would spend an hour, I think it was twice a week, with that child, teaching them how to play all different instruments. And they actually had a chronic disease, and so they were in there pretty often, so she got to know them pretty well. But she said it was kind of difficult because being in children's hospital wing, I think it was typically outpatient, and also a lot of the patients she saw were only there for like a week or two, and then sometimes they passed away, and sometimes they were discharged and then they come back, or they were just discharged and she'd never see them again. So she said it was hard to see how to like see them progress over time, because there was like less of a timeline, I guess.
Okay, so we have time for one more question. If you could go anywhere in the historical earth and see one person perform, who do you think you would choose?
Really hard. Honestly, I don't even know. I don't think that there's like a specific musician in mind, but I'd more just love to go to India and to hear people who are like masters at different instruments over there, like the harmonium or different instruments like that, and hear like throat singing. Like my friend Joanna and I we went to a Tuvan throat singing concert in the beginning of the year, and like seeing masters at throat singing or something along those lines, something that I've never encountered someone as a master in, I think would be incredible.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Sorry, I did not answer the questions.
Yeah, it's like art. I also now just like really want to talk about music for hours when I can actually talk back instead of just awkwardly smiling at a camera.
No, you're good. Sorry, I didn't know. You want me to wait?
Sure, if you want to.
Put a log on fire.
Safe trip home.
Okay.
And happy Hanukkah. This year is I know, it's Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve. Are these guys in the picture? Everybody has to be. Let me get everybody. Will be. I just want to make sure. All right.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Suzanne.